Hi, I'm Peggy Farren, and we are live with the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel and nature photography. Welcome to episode 18. Hey, if you're struggling with shooting in the manual setting and you want to learn more about composition and lighting, our live and interactive online class, let me say that again because it didn't come out right. Our live and interactive online class, the 4 weeks to proficiency in photography, starts on January 17th. Now it is live, I teach it live, but it's also recorded, so if you missed the live class you can watch the recording later. And it's going to give you a good foundation in photography. So you are going to be so comfortable with shooting in the manual setting by the end of this 4 weeks. You're going to have homework every day, and I'm going to follow up to make sure you're doing your homework. And you're going to really learn. You're going to love it. So that starts January 17th. It's on sale for only $297 for all 4 weeks. And then you have to practice, right? So you want to go on one of our trips. We only have 3 short trips left for this season. The first one is the Everglades trip. That's January 26th. It's a 4-day trip. We only have 1 opening. Joe Fitzpatrick leads that trip. He's been leading it for years. It's an awesome trip for Everglades photography. We do a little bit of landscape and a lot of birds and a lot of everything, a lot of fun. I'm leading a workshop to Mount Dora, Florida, which is the cutest town in Florida. It's got like Victorian homes, and we rent a boat and go through the chain of lakes. It's a very you're going to learn a lot of general things. It's ladies only. We stay in the top-rated bed and breakfast in Mount Dora. It's a lot of fun. And then our last trip is a 4-day trip to St. Augustine, and again, that one is led by Joe Fitzpatrick. So you can check out our website at understandphotography.com and click on the training tab to find out more about our workshops and about the 4 weeks to proficiency in photography. Now, I have a big favor to ask you. We finally got this show on iTunes. We have just about 6 weeks left. We're trying so hard to get on New and Notable. So I'm begging you, go on iTunes and do a search for the Understand Photography Show, and then subscribe to the show, listen to the show, rate the show, 5 stars please, and then give us a nice review. Hopefully you like it, and that will help us so much, so I appreciate it. Anyway, episode 18, my guest is Robert O'Toole, which is so exciting. Robert is a nature and wildlife photographer. He's amazing. He offers photography tours and workshops. He also has the honor of being one of the Sigma Pro photographers. So Sigma was impressed enough by this guy to say, hey, would you represent us? So that's kind of cool. In addition, Robert was named both the Shell Wildlife Photographer of the Year and the American Eagle Foundation Photographer of the Year in 2008. And so he's here to give us some travel and wildlife photography tips. So welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So tell me, what drew you to nature photography?
Thankfully, I grew up in Southern California, and I found myself, usually I could be found every morning floating off Pacific on a surfboard. So I spent my whole teenage years, around dolphins, whales, birds. I started really getting into birds, started studying birds. I started photographing birds, and then went from there. So I started off just being surrounded by the wildlife in Southern California. I'm lucky. I'm really glad I did that.
So you really kind of started off, and bird photography is one of the
hardest actually I did.
Right?
I did.
Isn't
I
it?
did.
Would you still say that bird photography?
It's the most challenging. Yeah, it is.
Because birds, they fly this way, that way, they fly.
And there's all types of bird photography. There's small bird photography, and then there's big birds. There's wading bird photography. There's people that do just raptor photography. I tend to like the larger birds, the wading birds and the raptors. All different types of bird photographers.
And you still do a lot of bird photography.
I do. I do a couple tours every year.
Well, you do the eagles.
I do.
One of your
and I'm
tours.
doing Florida birds in April.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
So where are you going to be?
St. Augustine.
Oh, awesome. I love St. Augustine.
One of my favorite places.
The oldest city in the nation.
It is.
That is so cool. Now, what are you doing here in Naples?
Visiting my mom, and we're enjoying the sunshine and the beaches.
And you're also going to give?
I'm doing a presentation tomorrow morning, and I'm actually going to be doing 2 sold-out workshops on Sunday.
So that's,
for the
if
Naples
you're listening
group.
To the recording, that's January 7th and 8th, 2017. So
Wow.
You may have missed it. And his workshops are sold out, so you did miss those. But we have a really good camera club here in Naples, Florida. Their website is dpi-sig.org. If you want to come tomorrow to Robert's lecture, you know, just hop on there, send them a message and say, hey, can I come? You have to be a member to come, but it's $30 to join the group, I think, and then the lecture is free. So you don't want to miss this guy. He's really good. So what kind of travel photography you're doing mostly wildlife or landscapes or?
I do mostly wildlife. I like doing travel photography also, so I'm going to start doing a little bit more of that. I mentioned that to you before, but right now mostly it's just wildlife and a little bit of macro also, which is a little bit different than wildlife photography. So yeah, but.
So now tell me what kind of tour, tell me what tours do you have coming up?
Oh, coming up I have a tour in Greece. We're going to specialize, going to be chasing after one bird. It's called Dalmatian pelican. It's like the largest bird, heaviest bird in the world. And then right after that I come back, and then we're going to be going to Japan, which I do every year, which is going to be an awesome trip. That's great. As soon as I come back from there, it's about 2 weeks. I'm going to do 2 bald eagle workshops. I've been doing that tour. This will be my 12th year doing just bald eagles.
Where's
we do 5 days. It's up in Alaska.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, then I come back and I'm back in Florida. I'm doing St. Augustine, birds.
Uh-oh.
And then
same time as us?
No. And then I come back, and then I go back to Alaska a few more times doing bears in summertime.
Oh my God, some of your bear pictures are amazing.
Oh, thanks.
I
I enjoy doing that.
And tell me your website, because we'll just start talking
It's
about
my name. It's Robert O'Toole with the E at the end.com, or Robert
no
O'Toole
apostrophe,
Photography.
though.
No apostrophe. That'll get you into trouble.
Robert
if you do that.
O'Toole Photography.
Yeah, you can just search Google Robert O'Toole. I should come up first. If you want to.
Awesome.
Please stop by. I just redid the site in November, so it's brand new.
Oh wow, it's a beautiful site too.
Oh,
I've
thank
been
you.
studying it.
I tried to do it as clear and simple as possible for people, so hopefully that works.
Okay, so when you're traveling, so you're traveling mostly to shoot wildlife.
Yes, but my wife and I like to do travel photography. So we'll do, one day we'll do just people, one day we'll do different things around the city. So we really enjoy doing travel photography.
So does
or
your
people
wife
photography.
travel with you on
Yes,
most of the tours?
we try to have her come along when she can. She's a big help.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, I've met your wife, and she's a lot of fun.
Oh, thanks.
She's very shy, though.
Not really.
Just kidding. All right, so what kind of equipment do you bring?
Do you mean when I travel or
When you
in
travel?
general?
When you travel specifically for like you're leading a wildlife photography workshop, what are you going to bring?
The biggest thing, I think, the biggest change over the last few years is I went to, I think this will be my 3rd year, I went to all zooms, believe it or not. So years and years ago, it was different. It was all primes. The last, it was 3 years ago, last time I brought a prime. So now I'm traveling with a wide angle zoom, a 24-105 Sigma. I have a fast telephoto, a 120-300, 2.8. It's a great lens. And then I have a 150-600 sports, and that changed everything. Now I don't need to bring a big 600 anymore, a big 500 anymore. And to this day, I still have yet to be sitting there shooting in the field and telling myself, you know, I wish I had my 600 f4. That has not happened yet. And I'm able to travel with one backpack.
You fit all that stuff
Yeah,
in one backpack?
one backpack.
Heavy,
And I could do both lenses with hoods on, ready to go with bodies in one backpack. I can just pull them out and shoot. I don't need to put everything away, separate it. That's a big advantage. I'll go to Japan with other people, other professionals, or people that don't listen to me that are participants on my tour, and they'll bring multiple bodies, multiple primes, and they'll have all their primes, 300, 2.8, you know, whatever, laying in the snow, all these different bodies, and it seems they never have the right lens on the camera, right? So the best equipment is the one you have with you, ready to go, and I'm able to just cover everything. It's a pretty big change in the way I shoot, and just how much I enjoy the trips now. So.
Well, now zooms have improved a lot.
That's why the 150-600 really changed everything, because it doesn't have chromatic aberration. It's super sharp. It's only that big. It's pretty reasonable for people. It's pretty amazing what you can do with it. Really sharp, very sharp.
Another guy who was here for the Dippy Sig
Oh,
things last year, that Roman, I don't know his last
Oh,
name.
Kirchhoff.
Roman with Roman.
Yeah.
I impulse bought one of those lenses after he talked about it.
Oh.
He just kept talking about how great it was, and then of course he brought the Sigma guy with him.
Oh, okay.
And I ended up buying that lens.
He uses the contemporary version. I don't use that. I have a high resolution body. I have a D810. He's shooting with a 16 or 18 or 20 megapixel body, so he uses the contemporary. There's a big difference. The contemporary is meant more for crop cameras. It doesn't have the same optical makeup. It has a lot less cheaper glass in it. I shouldn't say cheaper. Low index, not so corrected. The glass isn't so corrected. The optical formula is not so corrected on the contemporary version. So the corners aren't as good. So the sports version is about one grade level higher in quality. So if you want superb quality, get the sports, a little bit heavier, a little bit more expensive. If you have a crop camera and you want good, not superb, get the contemporary. depends on what you're aiming for. But if you have a high resolution body, I would go with the sports. I would not go with the contemporary version.
Okay, see, that's good advice. I didn't know
Big
that.
difference.
I'll tell you what sold me was he kept talking about how light it was.
The contemporary is light. They're both light.
Doesn't
They're
feel
both
light, to
but
me,
the contemporary is a lot
truth.
lighter. Oh, okay. See, that's the thing too. I came from carrying around a 600 f4 all the time, so I go to the 150 to 600, and it's one
You're like,
finger.
oh,
It's so
wow,
light.
this is
Yeah.
nothing. I know.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. I actually started getting tennis elbow, and I have arthritis in my fingers because I'll hold the camera for 8 hours without a strap. I don't like straps. I'll just then hold the camera all day. I have arthritis.
Why don't you like
I get
straps?
tennis elbow. They slow me down.
Slow me down.
Slow me down.
Wow. Now you just said that you're shooting with a Nikon, but you also shoot
Yeah,
Canon?
I shoot both systems professionally for a long time now. I have a D810, a D500. I also have a 70D. Actually, I just sold my 70D. I have a 7D Mark II with some Canon lenses. But the system I prefer right now is probably the Nikon, just because the image quality is a little better. Okay. You know, they leapfrog each other. Right. Canon goes for megapixel, the most megapixels they can. They left image quality fall behind. Canon stuck with 12 megapixels. Now they bumped it up. And now Sony's going ahead with more megapixels than anybody with image quality. So Sony's jumping ahead of everybody. But right now, Nikon has a little better image quality. So I have to say Nikon's probably my favorite right now. But I know that I can make good pictures with both cameras. Don't let that stop anybody. You know, for me, being a professional, I have different requirements. And for me, it's just a tool. You know, just a tool. So if I don't like it or something else new work better, I just sell it and buy something new. I don't get stuck with brands. People, they really get stuck with brands. They become their equipment. You know, I'm a Canon shooter. I'm a Nikon shooter. I don't believe in that.
I'll tell you why I got stuck, not stuck, but why I stay with Canon is because I got all the lenses.
Yeah, but I sold all my big lenses, Canon stuff. It sold really quickly. Usually you can sell it really quickly. It holds its value really well. Okay. Because there's a lot more Canon shooters now than Nikon people. So you could sell your Canon equipment usually pretty easily. Usually.
I could go Nikon, huh?
Usually. I wouldn't recommend it. Depends. Depends.
And for you as a workshop leader, because, you know, I teach as well, knowing both the Canon and Nikon.
Exactly. You know, that's the reason I actually I shot Nikon originally in the film days. Then I went to Canon autofocus, and I originally bought Nikon again just so I could learn the system and so I could help people. That's the reason I bought it. And that's another good point you just brought up too, is the systems are so different. I firmly believe unless you use both systems, you're not going to know both systems. They are so different. Yeah. I could go into it with you, but we don't have the time. But they're really different.
Because I teach, so you know my classes are both. Well, and now a lot of Sonys lately too. Yeah. But Sonys are very similar to Nikon.
To Nikon,
so,
they are.
But when I first started teaching, I was really thrown off by the Nikon, so I made a big.
And I have a lot of colleagues that, let's just say, they just shoot Canon only. I'll be with them in the field helping or just hanging out with them. And I'll hear them calling out what they're doing with Canon, and then they'll try and help the Nikon people. And I hear what they're telling the Nikon people, and I know it's not true. Yeah. So I think you really have to shoot professionally with the other system to know it. Like, that's why I actually might get into Sony this year. I was going to do it last year, I didn't do it. I might actually buy a Sony this year. One of the nice things about Sony is, because of the distance from the optical point of the lens to the sensor, you can shoot both lenses on a Sony. You can shoot Nikon or Canon. You can't put a Canon lens on a Nikon. You can put a Nikon on a Canon, but you can't go the other way around. So I'm thinking about doing that also because I can shoot with both lenses. I can shoot Canon, Nikon, Sigma on a Sony, so we'll see.
You got a problem with buying equipment, it sounds like to me.
No, it's just a tool. It's just a tool.
Oh my gosh. All right, so you told us what you brought. Repeat it though, because I want to make sure that Ashley, the beautiful virtual assistant, writes that in the show notes.
Oh,
what
okay.
lenses do
you mean my travel? My travel kit is
wildlife.
Yeah, 24-105 Sigma zoom.
24-105 Sigma zoom.
Yep. And Nikon doesn't make that focal length. That's more of something Canon sells. So it's kind of unusual. Yeah. For Nikon, I mean, it's kind of unusual. 24-105. They call it, that one's an art lens. Then I use a sports lens. It's a 120 to 300 2.8. It's special. No one else makes it. Sigma's only people. It's awesome. And then I travel with the 150 to 600 sports lens. So I'm covered from 24 to 600. And I travel in a backpack this big with two bodies. It's a tiny backpack. It's amazing.
Awesome. That's awesome. But now you said you're also into macro photography.
Yeah.
So you're using different equipment for that.
Yeah. So usually if I'm going to go to, let's say, Japan, I'm not going to be doing any macro. I use an even smaller backpack, and I have even less equipment with my macro setup. I have all the macro lenses. My favorite's probably the 105 or the 150 Sigma. Comparing it to the other brands, comparing it to Canon or let's say Nikon. I do also have Canon and Nikon macro lenses.
Oh my goodness.
I prefer the Sigma just because it gives you a little bit, there's something called longitudinal CAs, it's chromatic aberration. So on a lot of the lenses, even Zeiss, Canon, a lot of the lenses, you'll see purple fringing on the front and green fringing on the back. If you shoot a white flower, you're going to get purple here and green here. And I don't care what Zeiss f2, 100 f2, whatever lens you have, the Canon 100 2.8, you're going to get color fringing. The Sigma is totally corrected for that. So there's no color fringing at all. So the Sigma 105, you won't have the color fringing. On the Sigma 150, it's a super apochromat. That means there's no color. All the light rays are focused onto one point, so you don't have any color fringing at all. So that's the reason I like those lenses. And that's actually how I started working with Sigma. I actually shot with Sigma macro lenses before I knew anyone at Sigma. And I met him at a trade show, actually at Napa a long time ago, a nature photographer show. And it turns out the person I was hired to help him, his booth was next to Sigma. And I started showing them. It turns out the professional rep, the head of marketing, was there. And I started showing him my pictures taken with Sigma lenses. And he told me, I've never seen better pictures than that ever taken. I have to talk to you after the show. And so that's how I actually got hired, by my pictures, yeah.
Wow.
Kind of nice.
I always wonder, how do people get to be a Sigma Pro
Yeah.
photographer? You just kind
Yeah,
of fell
amazing.
into it by
Yeah.
being good. And
Yeah.
being there in the right place
Yeah.
at the right
You could say
time,
that.
I guess.
You could say that.
That's so cool. So now, do you have, when you do your workshops, are some of them specifically for macro, or do you like?
I break it up, yeah. I like doing macro workshops just because nature's really fickle. So people request, let's do a bird workshop, and I tell them it's really difficult to do that because birds migrate, they're real sensitive to weather conditions. Macro, you can go to a botanical garden and there's always going to be great subjects. You're going to have beautiful, you can control the light with macro. Too much light, you can diffuse, you know how it goes. Not enough light, you can add light. So you never have a problem with the conditions, and you'll always have beautiful flowers, stones, tree bark. There's so many subjects, it's unlimited opportunities at a botanical garden. Whereas if you're going to try and schedule nature way ahead, and you're not going to be there for 7-8 days, it's really hard. My eagle workshop, for example, is 5 straight days.
Okay.
My bear workshop, 7 straight days. The reason we do that, my Japan workshop's 2 weeks straight. The reason for that is we're going for perfect weather. See what I mean? So if we just made an eagle workshop for 1 day, it wouldn't work out too well. But if you're going to be there for 5 days, yeah, exactly. You're going to get good light, overcast light. We might even get snow 1 day, so it works out perfectly.
That is so cool. What's perfect weather for an eagle workshop?
Anything but sun.
Anything but sun. Sun is not
It's
your
the
friend.
opposite what people think. People,
because of the white
we'll go up
feathers,
to
is that
Alaska,
why?
exactly, too much content. We'll go to Alaska and people will say, boy, you lucked out. We got a bright sun ahead of us, no clouds, and I just cringe. Oh no, it's the worst weather. Yeah, you want, the worst better. So if we have a huge storm come through, it's the best for eagle photography. It's the best. A lot of different reasons, but yeah. You can add contrast later, but you can't handle, I help people, I judge photography contests, I help people the whole year, and I get people that'll email me this picture, like a once-in-a-lifetime picture of this eagle at their local park, wherever they go to, and it's turning away, and they shot it at noon in the middle of summer on a bright sunny day, and they tell me, Robert, how do I tame the contrast? And I said, you're going to have to wait for that eagle to come back on a cloudy day, because there's nothing you can do. I mean, unless you shot an HDR of it, bracketed 6 shots, 3 stops apart, there's no way to bring both in. So you have to shoot when the conditions are better, either early in the morning, late at night, overcast, a storm is great.
So now, do you shoot in manual all the time, or do you
Yeah,
shoot aperture priority or shutter priority?
I don't recommend anybody shoot aperture priority or shutter priority, and I haven't for years. I think that's totally outdated. What I do is I recommend everybody shoot manual mode, either spot meter or matrix, evaluative, whatever. And if you're having trouble and you need to catch up, the light's going too quickly, you're getting tired, you're moving from the forest to the plains, you're moving from the forest to the opening, or the forest has openings, and you don't want to be going back and forth, or the shot's just too important to miss and you don't know the exposure, I recommend being in manual mode. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to set your shutter speed first. That's the most important thing for nature photography, wildlife photography. You're going to set your shutter speed based on the amount of blur you want.
Okay.
Do you want the eagle razor sharp from the tips, tip to tip, wingtip to wingtip? Or do you not want it, just a little bit sharp? You want to do, I like doing blurs. You can see lots on my website. I want the thing just to be brush strokes across the whole frame of the picture? So you set your shutter speed based on the amount of blur. So if I want to get a sharp eagle, I'm going to go 1600, 2000, 3000, or 4000 of a second.
Okay.
Then I'm going to set my aperture, and I like to stop down. I shoot with a full frame camera mostly, so I like to stop down a bit. So I shoot at f5.6, f8. Then when I get that, what I do is I point the camera to some middle tone, and I set my ISO on 0. Depending on the camera body, some of the Canons, I'm sure you know, you have to bump the exposure up. So on a Canon, you might want to go +2/3, +1, depends. But I'm going to point the camera to middle tone, and I'm going to set the ISO to give me 0 on the meter. So I'm going to use the ISO as the variable.
Okay.
Now, like I said, if the weather conditions are changing too much, or you're going from shade, which is the forest, and you're going out to the desert, and you're going back and forth, you can't sit there and change the ISO, you know, 50 times a day. So what I recommend doing is just going into auto ISO.
Okay.
So I recommend using manual mode, and when you need auto, don't go to aperture. If you go to aperture, you're giving up your shutter speed, which is the worst thing you could possibly do. I don't think anybody, any wildlife or nature photographer should be telling anybody to use aperture priority. If you use shutter priority, you don't know what the aperture is going to be, so you give up control of the depth of field, right? If you shoot in manual, you give up any auto control. So how you get both, it's like a super mode. So how you get control of the shutter speed and the aperture, the depth of field, and you just put it on ISO. So that's the way to go.
You know, it's so funny because that's my advice too all the time.
Yeah.
Because
it works out great.
I remember when they first came out with it, I was like, whoa, this is a game changer.
But there is one thing everyone needs to know about, though.
Okay.
And this is one area where Nikon excelled ahead of Canon for almost 10 years was you need to understand how to use exposure compensation in manual mode with auto ISO. So if you're just using auto ISO, you're at the mercy of the meter.
Right.
Yeah, so if you're shooting a black bird against a black background or a white bird in the snow, you're basically going to have huge issues. So if it's a white bird in white snow, you're going to want to go +2 on the auto ISO on the exposure compensation. If it's going to be a black bear in a black sand beach in Hawaii, you're going to want to go at least -1 on the exposure compensation.
Okay.
If you don't use exposure compensation, you're going to have some issues because the camera's not perfect. None of the cameras are perfect.
No,
so, but what I meant by Canon was ahead is Canon didn't offer exposure compensation in manual mode with auto ISO up until the 1DX, and that was only because people asked for it. Now all the newer cameras, my 7D Mark II has it.
Okay.
All the new cameras have it. So Nikon caught up. They put that in there because people were asking it. The professionals were asking about it. Yeah. Professionals were demanding it. So they actually put it in.
Yeah,
so.
Okay.
And it's funny, I read on the internet, I'm glad you asked that question. I've read on the internet where these people that are out there, they're just bloggers. They don't have any background or anything, and they're not professional photographers. And they'll tell people that it's actually a bug. They said, wow, Nikon should fix that problem. They actually consider it a problem. As a professional, that's an important tool, especially helping people, being able to help people with that.
See, now before auto ISO, though, I never understood that.
Oh, okay.
Why would they have that before the auto ISO?
Well, the unusual
in manual, I mean.
I guess they figure I'm not sure why they didn't do it. I'm not sure.
Because when I first started teaching, the Nikon people hit that exposure compensation button by accident all the time.
Oh, got it. Nikon people too.
And then I'm trying to teach them in manual, and I'm like, well, you should be at F.
I can probably guess why, just based on me leading people around, trying to teach them, leading workshops and things is, I've actually met people that claim they're Nikon experts, and what they'll do is they'll be in manual mode, and by mistake, they'll hit the button. So they'll dial in -3 stops in manual mode. And they're not watching for the little viewfinder indicator that shows you have exposure compensation blinking. And they'll be driving themselves crazy. They can't figure out why their camera's so dark. They don't know it. So I think Canon probably got feedback at the beginning about that it's going to cause a lot of problems. And they said, you know what, lock it out for people. Don't let them even do that mistake. But Nikon left it in for professionals.
Yeah.
That's all I can guess. I don't know.
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, when I first started teaching, that drove me crazy because everybody, I learned to look for certain things. I learned to look for, if it was Nikon, if they hit the exposure compensation. The other thing that I learned to look for is if people will have their polarizer lenses on all the time, and it's like, they're telling me they're setting something, and that doesn't sound right. Now I'll look, I'll go, do you have a darkening lens on the end of
what I tell people to do is, let's say there's an eagle across the street, we're going to go shoot the eagle. Before we even go over there, set everything up. What I tell people is, first thing to do is look at the LCD display, or better yet, hit the info button on the back, which is hard for people, right? Hit the info button and look for that plus or minus indicator. Just look for it blinking. If you see it blinking, dummy, you have exposure compensation set up. People don't look for that, so you need to look for that. Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite animal that you photograph?
Favorite animal? Probably a bear, maybe. A bear, or some of the big cats. Bears are really interesting. They're always up to mischief. Yeah.
I mean, how far away are you? I mean, it looks so scary.
Well, you don't want to get close, but there's certain situations where You don't ever, any wild animal, could be a cougar here, you don't want to move back, a panther here I should say, you don't want to move back, so you want to stand your ground. So we've had the bears come within a couple feet of us and we moved away immediately after that. There's actually limits in the parks we go to, where especially with babies, you're not supposed to get within a certain distance. But like I said, you don't ever back up. If the bear's going to come towards you, he's coming towards you, there's nothing you can do. If you move back and you start stepping back and you move back too quickly, I see it happen all the time. You trigger predatory response, just like a dog or a cat, anything. If they see you backing up, they think it's time to attack. It's a food item, and they'll just attack you. They're just attacking you because you're moving back. They aren't attacking you because they want to eat you or kill you. So you don't ever move your ground. You always stay your ground with a bear. So
you've had bears too.
We've had them probably to the light. We've had them a little bit farther than you, yeah. But it's just because we're trying to, it's to be safe. So we don't want to move back. And then as soon as they leave, then we move back. So.
Oh my God.
That's the case with any wild animal. If you come up on a panther, if you're jogging along or riding your bike and you see a panther come on the trail, you don't want to run. You want to stand your ground. And if they come at you, try and hit them with something and they'll leave. But you don't want to, especially even with a panther, don't run. The worst thing you can do.
Yeah. I wonder what you're supposed to do with an alligator. Those are the ones that I encounter. I don't
Alligator?
even know.
Hit them over the head.
They probably wouldn't even feel it. Those things are like.
Don't jump on their back, for sure.
Okay, so so you're traveling a lot. It sounds like. How do you keep your gear safe? Do you have any recommendations?
Okay, good. Best thing I can recommend is I actually use a bag called an F-stop bag. That's a line of bags. F-stop. F-STOP. And what they do is they sell internal compartment units. They're like little padded blocks, and they have dividers for lenses. The advantage of that, number one, I slip it in a normal roller. I go buy my roller from REI. It's a beautiful roller, $90.
Okay.
Stick it in the roller. It looks like what? An REI bag, right?
Yeah.
The problem originally is a company called Think Tank came along and they changed everything. So they made these beautiful rollers. Before, everybody had Tamarack and Loewe Pro, and you can spot them at the airport. Mm-hmm. There's photographers, everybody. Think Tank came along and made black bags. They kind of hit them, but now everybody has Think Tank. So you go to the airport, you can spot them. There's a photographer, But my bag is invisible. That's one of the things. That's one of the ways.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, and you could even buy just a regular backpack, buy these units and stick them inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, my backpack is actually an F-stop backpack just because they make such nice backpacks, but you can always hide that with that.
Okay,
it's a big tip. Yeah, it really works really well.
I'm not familiar with them.
But if you go online right now, they're probably going to be backordered. Last time I checked, they were backordered on all their units. They're internal compartmental units. They're called ICUs. But place an order and wait. It's worth it. Second biggest thing. This is a real huge thing. That has saved me a few times. So in my lifetime, I've never had my camera taken from me by the airport staff, okay? Lately, what's helped me, in Alaska, I've come really close. What's helped me lately is, guess what? If they want the roller that bad, I unzip the roller and I pull the compartment out. It has a handle and it's all padded. I take this compartmental unit with me on the plane. I give them the roller. And they're happy to check in a roller because they're staff people. So they actually tag and check in my roller with an orange tag. It's empty, and they check that in. I carry the unit and put it up in the storage. So that's a real huge tip, and that saved me a few times because you don't want to let the airport staff take your bags. They lie to you. They tell you, we're not going to send it through the rollers, and what do? They throw it onto the roller, and it comes out on the automated system full of equipment, so don't do that.
Oh my gosh, that is a good tip. I didn't even think about that, but I don't travel as much as you do.
Oh yeah. You should look into it if you do.
I would.
And that's a big thing too, like I mentioned. My REI roller is awesome, and it was like $89 on sale. How much is a photography roller? $500. It's completely outrageous. The internal unit is $100. The roller is $90. $190 versus $500. It's crazy.
I definitely am gonna look into that. So what about, so you go to Japan in the wintertime. What about keeping your stuff like safe from snow or ice?
The one thing I can say is I do a lot of trips there. I have a lot of people go with me, and I see a lot of other people there. I don't want to push this company. I'm not sponsored by them. I just use the gear, by the way. It's an F-stop backpack. The reason I like using it, it's flipped. So you enter through the strap side. You don't enter through the other side. What happens with everybody else, I put a rain cover on it, and it's impervious. I can put it in a bucket of water. Nothing will get wet. Nothing will get dirty with a rain cover on it. So the rain cover goes down. The front of the backpack goes down. The hatch comes up on the strap side. I watch everybody else with like a Loewe Pro backpack or whatever. Name any of the backpack you can think of. They have to turn their backpack downwards.
Right.
So when they pick it back up, it's full of snow, full of mud, pine cone needles, pine cones, bugs, insects, everything. So can you imagine the 15th day, their backpack is disgustingly dirty. There's snow, mud, pine needles inside their compartment with their lenses. It's just getting, the zipper's all dirty with mud. It's completely crazy. Wow. My backpack after 15 days is completely clean because the only part that ever touches the ground is the part with the rain cover. It's the part that's sealed.
That's awesome.
It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
I think you need to be sponsored
yeah,
by this company.
Also you need to wear the right gear. I use a lot of Patagonia stuff. I use really, really good gear to stay safe, not just to keep your equipment clean or whatever, and not just to make nice images, but keep yourself healthy, because there's a lot of like hypothermia.
So what do you wear? I mean, I live in Florida and I am a huge baby. My son went on his honeymoon to Iceland and I couldn't understand it.
I can cover that for you. We can do something in the future. I can maybe put something on the website about that. I choose the right gear. Like I use insulated boots. The difference is, this is important. When you go to like, let's say an REI, an outfitter store, they're going to sell you equipment made for hikers, which is the wrong equipment because hikers are constantly on the move.
They're moving their feet.
Yeah. So if they wear big, thick, heavy boots, exactly, they're burning calories. If their big, heavy boots keep them warm, that's not going to work if for me, where I'm standing on ice for 4 hours and it's 10 degrees outside, it's completely different gear.
Yeah.
So you have to buy insulated boots. The boots I use have 2,000 gram insulation. If you go to an outfitter store here in Florida, let's say you go to Bass Pro Shop, they're going to sell you a pair of boots that won't even have a rating, or at the most it'll be 200 grams rated on the boots. 200 grams of insulation.
Okay.
My boots have 2,000 grams of insulation.
Wow.
So I'm not going to get cold. And I suffer with my feet. I've gotten my feet cold so many times now. I'm real sensitive, especially my toes. And also my fingers. You need to have really good gloves. I could do that with something in the future and write something up for you. You can post it.
Take you up on that.
So I use multiple layers.
I
use multiple layers on my gloves, so I never expose my hand to the outside. It always has at least a liner on it. You can modify existing gloves. You can buy nice gloves, but you want to keep yourself safe. Yeah, you want to use lots of layers and the right equipment.
Do you wear like those big snowsuits and stuff?
No, just layers. Nice big jacket with a bunch of layers.
I can't remember. I wish I could remember the other guest I had that was his biggest advice was the feet.
Yeah,
right?
it is. It is. He's right.
Really expensive.
He's right. My boots weren't so much. I can give you information on that. My boots weren't so much. My boots were about $200. They weren't that much.
No, those were way.
Oh, I've heard of people that have a lot. Yeah,
I forget
these are good.
what he said, but that was one of his things. Is if your feet are warm, everything else.
I also have some middle layers that I like. So it's a mid layer. So it's meant to be worn not on the outside, not all the way on the inside. But what it is, it has a built-in balaclava. So one of the things is if you're out shooting and it starts to snow, wet snow. What do you have to do? You're starting to get cold, your face is getting cold, you're starting to lose heat from your head, it's in the evening, you need to get warm. But to go to the car and get your headgear, and then you gotta put it on, you gotta pull everything off, put this thing in there, you're getting wet snow down your back, and then you have to put it back on. My middle layer has a built-in balaclava. I just pull this thing forward and zip it up, and guess what? I have a hole that big. So I'm always protected by the wind. I can pull it up anytime I want and zip it up.
What was the word? Baklava?
Yeah, it means something that's like a bodysuit that covers your whole upper torso in one. It's, you know what that is? Like people that, they make the flame retardant suits for the race car drivers.
Oh.
You ever see them when they come out? They have that's what it is. That's where the word comes from. Yeah. Okay. So the system that I use, and it actually works in summer for bugs. If I'm being bothered, I just zip this thing up, and they can't bite me because I have this much skin showing. Same thing with the
Florida,
gloves.
the mosquitoes are going to go for your eyes.
They'll go for your ankles. I've got bit on the ankle before in Florida. I've got killed by my ankles.
They're very vicious here in the summer. It's crazy. I met some people. In fact, some of the guys are going to be here on the show that are really into the swamp walking and swamp photography in the Everglades. And so the first time I ever did it, they had to dress me. I mean, I didn't even know what a buff was. You have to have a buff, and you have to, and your long sleeves and gloves, and it's like
that's good recommendation.
It's August, too bad.
If you go with me in summer, I recommend long sleeve, long pants. Yeah, I recommend all that stuff.
Yeah, here we use the nylon pants because it's hot,
yeah,
and they dry quickly. Because in the summer here, it's so wet. You're going to get wet.
I've been here in summer.
So, yeah, that's right. Your mom lives in Florida, so you spend some time here. So tell me about like one of your trips. What's your most popular trip? How's that?
Good question. Probably the bear trips lately, although Japan's really popular also. Well, I do small group workshops, which is kind of an exclusive thing, although people have started to copy me now, but I do 6 people maximum. And I'll go to these places and I'll see this full-size like Las Vegas tour bus pull up and 20 nature photographers will walk out of the bus. 20 people. So I don't understand how anyone's supposed to get any kind of assistance or help. So I think in that case, the photographer is just a guide. Yeah. Actually, he's not even a guide because he hires a guide. Yeah. I don't know why. I guess he's there to take your money, your credit card number, that's it. I do small group tours. 3 years ago now, I started doing 4-person bear tours. So it's kind of unheard of in the industry. So I only have 4 guests with me. And what that means, you get a lot of help. I'm really going to make a big difference. We can move around very quickly. It doesn't take 20 people, waiting for 20 people to get ready. We can move, we can get ready, we can go back, we can eat quickly. It just makes logistics a lot easier. Plus, everybody gets more attention. Everybody has a better time. The vehicle, everybody has their own row, has a lot of room. Really nice. So I've been doing that more and more lately. And I try not to charge much more money, so I might not make much money as I used to. But it kind of breaks my heart to see these people just doing it for the money and just bringing 8, 10 people. When you're out there with bears especially, and I'm with my group, and I know the effect I'm having on them, and I see a group, he might even be my friend, a colleague, and they'll come over the hill with 10 or 15 people behind them. The bears don't react the same. They don't like it. They turn around. They might just even walk away. They might don't want to even hang around near anybody with that many people. So
now, all right, so day 1, I'm flying. Where do you do the bears?
For Alaska, well, I do it in Katmai. So you'll get there a day or 2 early. I recommend everybody do that. Don't show up the morning. You're going to have a delay in summertime. Oh, yeah. You can get a fog delay for like 4 days, 3 or 4 days. Anyway. Oh, my God. Yeah, and then we take a float plane out to our base. We take a float plane out. We don't go on a boat out, a seaplane with pontoons. Yeah, we go out and I actually am boat based. We'll have the boat waiting out there for us. So the boat comes right in. The reason behind that, it's only an hour flight. If you take a boat out to where we're going to go, it's about a 10-hour voyage out there over the ocean. So we fly out. It's a little more expensive, but it's a lot better. So we fly in, you put your gear away, you have lunch, and we're out photographing. And then we'll usually do 2, maybe 3 shoots a day. You shoot a lot because in summertime, have you been to Alaska? No. In summertime, there's about 20 hours of light. So the sun comes up at 5, and we're out shooting till about 11 p.m., believe it or not. So the sun dips about 11:30 and goes behind the volcano or the mountain, and then comes right back up. It's not very dark. So it's not a very good time to see Aurora Borealis probably, but it's really good for nature photography. And so instead of having, in Florida, it's difficult to shoot. You have about 45 or an hour-minute window of beautiful light in the morning. If you're lucky, you'll have more in the evening, but you have these 2 little windows. In Alaska, because the sun doesn't set, it just skims along. You literally have 3 or 4 hours of perfect light. And when I mean by perfect is I shoot a picture of it, don't do anything to it, and I'll show it on a website, and people think I adjusted the saturation and warmed the picture. That's just how the sun is. It's perfect. So that's one big advantage also.
So now, is this a grueling thing of 20 hours a day, or do you get?
We space it. We do. Yeah. No, we shoot when the light's good. If the light's poor, we're back doing Photoshop, eating, resting, sleeping, downloading. We don't go out when the lights are bad.
But bears, I have heard you have more energy when the light is like that. That's what
you do.
Remember that show Northern Exposure?
Yeah, you do.
The first summer he was there, he was all hyped up because he had
that's
all
jet
that
lag.
energy.
A lot of that's jet lag. But bears, believe it or not, bears are the same as an eagle. So if you go out in the middle of the day in the summer, 12 noon on a bright day, no clouds, and you try and shoot a bear, what happens is the nose and the ears burn out. They're like 6, 7 stops over the stomach because the stomach's in a shadow, it's dark, or the eyes. There's no way to expose for both. So that's another thing. You want to have a little bit of overcast. Plus the bears in the summertime, they're perfectly suited to their environment. But for them, in summertime in July, Alaska hits about 60 degrees maybe. It's considered a heat wave. The bears can't handle it. The bears pant, they go in the water, they're dying at 60 degrees. So one of the things is, as soon as it cools down in the evening, or if it rains, if the clouds move in and it starts to rain, the bears just love it. They go crazy. They really like it. So we don't want to be out during the middle of the day when it's hot, 60 degrees. Can you imagine? 60 degrees is hot.
I know, me, the Florida girl, no. I like it. 60 degrees is
And
cold.
You have all your gear on, so actually you get hot also. You have all your gear on. You start to sweat.
True.
You start peeling layers off at 60 degrees.
That's true.
I think in summertime here, you'd be dreaming of 60 degrees, I think.
I like the heat.
Yeah, I do too. The humidity is another story.
Although, my son just moved to LA, I told you, and it's cold there.
This year's been very cold. We had a lot of rain also. It's a miracle.
I thought LA was warm. We got there, I helped him move there. And we got there at the end of May, and it was cold.
It was. This year's been cold.
And so he said, you know, he lives in an apartment that he rents, and he said, we bought a heater. I'm like, you don't have heat?
But yes, see, that's the thing. I don't use air conditioning. We use a heater very rarely. In 2014, it was 90 in December. It was 90 in May. It was so warm the year before. This last year's been very cold.
That's so strange.
It is.
Funny. All right, so what are some of the top mistakes that people make as nature photographers or wildlife photographers?
I think the biggest mistake I see is people concentrate too much on equipment, especially camera bodies. I think the most important thing is the photographer's knowledge. So I think you need to learn your camera, learn some good techniques, spend money on people like you, learning, hanging out with photographers, going on trips, going on workshops, going on tours, and invest money in good glass, good lenses. Don't spend so much money and time worrying about the next body that comes out. Especially Sony, they have a new body every 6 months. The brand new body, it doubles in price every time. It's crazy.
I can't believe how fast they come out with new cameras now.
And also, when you go on, I mentioned about going on tours and workshops, learning from people. One of the important things to realize too is don't go on a tour thinking this guy's going to show you where all the good shots are. Go on the tour, look at the photographer's work, see if you like his work, if he's doing something better than you're not doing. If you're better than him, don't go on the tour, or her. If you look at the photographer's work and you appreciate it from aesthetic or technical standpoint, and you want to shoot like this person, or you like the person's style, that's the reason you go on a tour or a workshop with the guy.
Okay.
I have people come to my workshops, and I don't understand why they're there. I don't even understand why they came. They think you come just because you're going to learn these secret spots or something. That's not the reason to do that. You can search on the internet and find all the secret spots. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. And also, I recommend that you concentrate on developing your own style. A lot of people will go on a tour with someone 5 times and they'll copy their style.
Right.
And their pictures look like the other guy's pictures, and you go online, they look like everybody else's pictures. So what I recommend doing is go on 5 different workshops, learn from 5 different people, and pick up what works best, the tips and the techniques that work best, and create your own style. People will take my tour, my workshop, and they'll tell me what this other photographer was teaching their workshop before, and I tell them that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what that person was doing. And also, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. Just try my technique. After all, you pay me a lot of money to come on this tour.
Right.
Learn practice my technique, see if it works out. If it doesn't, find another technique. But you need to develop your own style, your own technique.
Okay.
So that's one thing, a big
That is
thing.
good
And I tend to use techniques that other people don't use, like the auto ISO trick. A lot of photographers, people have started teaching that now, but I've been using auto ISO for 5 years or something like that. So
Well, it hasn't been out that long, maybe 7 years.
Okay.
I don't know.
Nikon's had it ever since a long time.
Have
Nikon's
they
had it for a
really?
long time. Yeah.
Oh, see, Canon.
Yeah. They've had auto ISO. They just haven't had the exposure composition control, though. They've had auto ISO for a while, but it's been around for a while.
So what else? What other mistakes do people make?
Wow. There's lots of mistakes. How do I even... well, I think, let's talk about maybe tips, I think.
Okay, tips.
Probably better.
Let's do tips.
One thing, maybe learn your camera. We talked about this a minute ago. Just learn your camera.
Especially before you go on a tour.
Exactly.
That's one
You
problem
just took the
we
words out of my
have.
mouth.
Some on our workshops, but more so I get a phone call and say, I'm going to Africa next week, and so I just bought a new camera and I need to learn how to use it.
I'll have someone on the second day of my workshop tell me, Robert, how do I turn the camera on again? I'm so embarrassed. And I tell them, go to the beach, shoot terns and gulls before you spend the money to go shoot eagles.
Yeah.
Go to the beach every day and learn the camera. And you need to learn, for example, how to make sharp pictures. If the camera's back focusing, front focusing, how to set up your technique. And I recommend people get too involved with different settings. They'll say, okay, this is my dog photography mode. This is my people photography mode. They do spreadsheets with all their settings. I set up my camera when I buy it. It comes out of the box. I set the camera up. It never changes modes ever again until I get rid of the camera, or it dies, or I drop it and ruin it. I never change my modes. I use the same photography for insects, for people, for travel. I use everything.
So when you say the same photography, you shoot all in manual, mostly. You
Yes.
personally don't use ISO automatic very
I do
often.
sometimes.
Sometimes?
Sometimes you have to.
So
Exactly. I use manual mode, auto ISO, exposure compensation. I use rear button focus only. I don't use butt focus here. I only use rear button. That's a huge thing. All my autofocus settings.
Tell me what you think. What's the benefit of back button
I
focusing?
couldn't photograph any other way. So the
Why is
reason
that?
is because
Explain that to people. Maybe somebody that doesn't even know what
yeah.
that is.
So the reason for that is because when you have it set up like it comes default from the factory, you don't have control of it.
Okay, it comes
So,
default where you're focusing
Yeah, you
with the
focus,
shutter button.
turn exposure metering on, take a picture, everything's the front button. What happens a lot of times you want to separate that. Let's say I'm tracking an eagle. This eagle came up in this parking lot. We went outside right now and this eagle's flying across. A perfect eagle. And he has a bunny rabbit in his talons, right? And he's flying across. Oh my God, look at that eagle. So you lock on the bird.
This is with back button or front?
This is front button from
Okay.
the factory. You'll make a few bursts. Shoot some pictures like that. Okay, you don't realize that every time you lift and go back down, you're reacquiring focus. Especially if you don't have very good technique, and especially if you don't have good settings. What's going to happen is there's a lot more chance you're going to drop focus. What I mean by drop focus is get the tree behind them, get the bird's foot, get the bird's back of the wing, get the airplane in the back, get the power lines, get the telephone lines, a jet landing at the airport, somebody's Learjet landing at the airport.
Just because you're focusing every
reacquiring,
time.
yes. Rear button, I lock on, it stays locked. I can do burst, singles, bursts. It's never going to leave the bird. It's always locked on. So I can look through there and I can see the bird's eye sparkling back at me and I know it's locked on. That's the big thing. And I learned that from a sports photographer like 15 years ago. And he told me that all the sports guys, they live by that. When they're doing a 30-shot sequence of a basketball guy or a football guy or a race car, you can't use front buttons, useless. They'll just drop. And I've had professionals, I don't want to give any names, that have resisted that for 10 years with me, knowing me. And then when they finally went, let's say 5 years, they went to back button. Now they're a back button evangelist. They tell everybody about back button, and it totally changed their photography. And they tell me their keeper rate went to 100, from 50% to 100% with birds in flight, things like that. So it makes a huge difference, I can tell you right now. Giant difference. Macro, huge difference. When I'm doing macro, I have autofocus only when I want it. So if I'm going to zoom in and photograph a flower and a bee flies in, I can just immediately hit the focus to get on the bee. Then I can let go and shoot, and if the bee, I have total control of it. Whereas if I'm using front button, I don't have that. It might miss focus and go to the flower. I have total control of it with macro even, and I can turn it off on anytime I want.
Now, so how do you, like you get your camera and it's front button focusing, how do you make it go to back button?
There are a little bit different ways, but what you want to do is, most of the new cameras is, you want to turn off the front button. You're not turning the back button on.
And
almost all the
that's
cameras, it's in the menu.
menu.
Yeah, in the autofocus setup menu. And also, it makes a big difference if you're doing starting and stopping. Like I mentioned, the bee flies in, or the eagle flies in, lands on a post. You want to track the bird, but when the bird lands, you don't want to be tracking because it might back focus onto the car or something in the background.
Right.
So you can let off, it stops autofocus, then you shoot them still. You wait for the eye to turn, you shoot them. Then you get back to check, you check, shoot again, check again. Then when the bird flies off, you want to track it. So you get back on it, you track them. If you're using front button and he lands, every time you take a picture, you're going to be refocusing.
Right.
You're going to have big problems. And then the bird takes off again, more problems again.
So now if a beginner wants to do that, they're going to look in the menu, they're going to turn off the front button, and then just practice.
And then do a lot of practicing, because it's going to take you about a
lot.
couple months, depends how much you shoot, but it'll take you a while to learn to put the back button when you want to focus.
I don't do it.
And
but
the
Joe
reason is
does.
because people go back, they get frustrated and they get disappointed, and they go back to the old way. That's the worst thing. You need to give it at least, and don't do it before a trip.
Same
Or
thing
don't
we
do it
just-
on a trip. Do it before the trip and get used to it. But I think it will send your keeper rate. And what I mean by that is pictures that you're going to want to show to people, or keep them in your archive, or keep them in your portfolio. It's going to send your keeper rate up. Seriously, when you learn how to control focus, even doing portraits, when you learn how to control the focus, you will never go back. Trust me, never.
I'm going to have to give it a second
Yeah.
try, because Joe Fitzpatrick, he is a back button focus guy. And so I'll pick up his camera. I'm like, I can't focus it, you know?
And I have to explain to people, I've been doing it so long. I've been doing back button focus for so long. It's actually hard for me to even explain to people, because I just take it for granted that all cameras focus only with the back button. And let's say I'll switch cameras with somebody. So let's say I'm at Bosque, a place in New Mexico famous for birds, and we'll get a crane walking through the deep grass. And I'll be on my camera, and I know if I lock on the bird's head, I'm only going to get the head in focus. I'm not going to get grass in focus. But I'll switch with somebody, they want to try my lens. We'll switch cameras. And I'll go to their Canon whatever, or the Nikon whatever, and they have front button on. And I'll try and take a picture, just focus on this crane, and I'm getting grass in front, crane, gas in back, bird, grass in back. I can't get it to stay on the bird. I'm going crazy. So when I go to the front button, I can't understand how people can shoot with front button. For wildlife, I mean.
Oh, right.
I can't understand it. I go back to back button, lock on the bird, it stays locked. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I don't know any bird photographers who use the front button.
Okay.
It seems like all the bird photographers
Okay.
use back button.
Okay.
Like
I said, I teach different techniques. They work
Yeah.
for me. They might work for you.
What's fascinating about having this show is
Mm-hmm.
is finding out how different people shoot. You know, I mean, one guy for his landscapes insists on a tilt shift lens. One guy does like F. You know, what did he? Everything
like
was like
tilt shift's nice. Tilt shift's nice.
F22 on everything. And
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just interesting to hear the different.
You can also do
techniques
focus
and-
bracketing. You can shoot different layers and just put them all together. That works really well too.
Photography is really fun. Once you get the basics down,
It is.
and then you can start experimenting with everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much fun. Well, it sounds like your trips are amazing. Now, how many trips a year do you do?
Oh, I don't have. I'd have to
You
count.
just told me.
I don't.
forgot.
I don't. I try not to do. I probably do 10 a year. I try not to
Oh my God,
do more than
10
once a month.
year.
I try not to do more than once a month. In the old days, I used to do like 4 or 5 a month, and it's too much. So I try not to do so much.
Oh my goodness, 10 a year.
I'm
sounds
going
like
for
a
more
lot.
quality, less quantity, more quality.
Holy. Well, tell me about this Greece tour, because you got 2 openings for the Greece tour.
I have. Actually, I do have 2 openings. Yeah, I have 2 openings. It's coming up. It's really close. I can give
It's
someone a
January
discount.
17th. Remember, I said I was going to
Yeah.
remember
If someone
the
wants a
date for you.
discount, I could sign up. It's the best place in the world to shoot Dalmatian pelican. It's
And
the
what's a Dalmatian?
heaviest. It's a big pelican with a 10-foot wingspan. They're about 40% bigger than your pelicans here.
40%.
They're huge. They're giant. They have an over 10-foot wingspan. They're like this
my
tall,
God.
and they have this crazy. You have to look at the images of them. They have a
Dalmatian
crazy
pelican.
Dalmatian pelican. They have a crazy hairdo. They're silver and they have a red bill, and their hair does these waves. They have curly hair. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. They make the awards, the Nature Photography Awards. They make every single year. There's a picture in there. Every year, there's always a picture of a Dalmatian
so
pelican.
cool.
They're so amazing. They're amazing.
where are they?
They're in Greece. We're in northern Greece,
Northern
near
Greece.
Thessaloniki. So everything's covered. Transportation, food, everything's covered. Please contact me if you want a spot.
How long is the tour?
It's 4 days.
4 days.
So
they
most
fly
people
in.
tie it into another trip. They don't do just specifically that.
Right, yeah.
So that's why hopefully I can fill it. Probably not, but hopefully I can.
Well, okay, so they fly into where? To
Oh, they'd fly
Athens?
into Thessaloniki. It's the second
Thessaloniki?
biggest city in Greece.
Okay, and so they should fly.
I'm
at
actually
least the
flying
day
into
before.
London because it's a lot easier from Florida to go to London. If you don't know, Tampa has a direct flight. It's like a 6-hour flight from Tampa. Stay out of the Northeast. Don't go through New York or New Jersey or any of those places. So I fly directly to London, a couple days off to get over jet lag, and then there's a nonstop flight for a couple $100, not even $100-something to go to Thessaloniki. So it's really easy to get to.
Wow. So you recommend they get there the day before?
Couple days,
A couple
yeah.
days before, and then you
Then
cover
go.
all the transportation,
Yeah, we have a van with a driver,
and that one's limited to 6 people?
oh, that one's actually 5 people less.
5 people?
Yeah, 5 people.
Wow,
It's a little bit
that's
less.
nice.
And my Japan tour also, I dropped it down to 5. I probably had the smallest trip, the most exclusive trip of anybody, and it worked out so well with one person canceled last year, so I had 5 people, and it worked out so well with 5. I'm going with 5. Most tours, people there take 8 or 10. I've seen 20 people in a group there. It's crazy. I don't know how they do that.
Well, you know, when we first started, we limit ours to 5 people, but when we first started, you know, there are 2 of us, because there's Joe Fitzpatrick. Now there are 3 of us, but there were 2 of us. So we said, well, we'll limit it to 5 per instructor. No, because you said it. What happened, we did it, and we took just a weekend trip to Miami, or whatever it was. And we only had 8 people, but they were like, come on, we got to go to the next stop. Well, this guy wanders off, and just a minute, I'll be right there. Well, I got to get this shot. And I mean, it was too hard to get them to move from one place to, and then person's like, oh, I'm so tired, this is taking so long. I'm like, because I can't get you to move. Because we had a schedule, and it was hard to follow it because just 8 people was too many.
Yeah.
So now
true.
it's 5 people because
That's
it is too hard. It is
good.
too hard. Although we do tours as well as workshops, so the tours are more people.
Yeah.
But like you said, that's a tour. So we are basically just showing them best places.
I do instructional tours, so I'm teaching as we go along. It's a little bit different, but yeah, it's basically the same thing. Yeah.
But it is hard.
I look at it as I give the people more personal attention. If they have a problem, I can help them. If they have a difficulty, if they need to practice something, I look at it that way. I can make them happier. So it's harder the more people there are.
It is. I
is really
totally
hard.
agree with that.
I don't see how someone with 15 people on a workshop or tour can give everybody attention. I don't see that.
There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no possible way.
Yeah.
So that, I know for us, we did the bigger tours to Cuba, And a lot of the more experienced photographers would say, oh, I want to come on that, because it's less money, obviously. So they don't want the instruction, okay, because they know everything.
Yeah, but then you have to deal with 15, 20 people getting ready and moving around, and it's hard.
Yeah, deadlines, and it's hard.
Going
it
to
hard.
eat, you basically take over the whole restaurant.
You do.
Yeah.
You don't basically.
It's hard.
You do.
You do.
Especially
it's hard.
in Cuba.
It's hard. Oh yeah, that's right.
So, all right, so your very next thing is Greece. That's coming up January 17th, and there's openings. Can you imagine how much you're going to learn with this guy? Go to Greece. Why not? You know, we could have people watching from Greece. You never know. This is the internet.
It's true. That's right.
So, and then from there, what's your next tour right after that? Do you remember?
Japan.
Oh, then Japan.
Japan. That'll be nice.
And you do the snow monkeys?
We do 3 days of snow monkeys. Yeah.
Those things are amazing.
They are.
They are just.
They are.
They're
They
like
weren't.
the
They weren't my
coolest-
favorites for a while, but I really like them now. I love to go back and see them.
And what else? You've got a new website coming up, or no? You said
I
you
redid my website in November, Robert O'Toole or Robert O'Toole Photography. My new website is Close Up Photography. That's brand new. I just made it live today, actually.
Close Up.
You were the first
Photography
person to see it, actually.
with one P.
Technically,
Well, actually, there's 2 P's. No, there's
in the
one.
URL, there's 1 piece. So Close Up Photography one. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay,
Wait, so it's Close Up.
photography. There.
It's Close Up Photography.
Yes. Yes.
So there's only 1 P.
So there's 2 P's, not 3 P's. That makes more sense.
Yeah. So Close
Up Photography.
Up.
Put it this way: if you go to Close Up Photography
.com.
and there's no website, you spelled it wrong.
Yeah. But now we're going to have that website as well as robertotoole.com.
And I started a Facebook group
Oh.
for the Close-Up Photography site, and I did one for the other site. If I can give you those links later too, so that way you can get with that, and I'll do updates on Facebook, and we can communicate. When you have a group, it's so much easier to communicate. And I also have a newsletter. That would be nice if you sign up for that also. I do a
Now,
newsletter.
how do they sign up for that?
On my site, you just hit newsletter. This window opens, or you can just email me.
This is on
Put me on the list,
robertotoole.com.
or closeupphotography.com. There's a newsletter link on the left.
So you click on the link, sign
Opens
up.
up,
Now,
put it
how,
in.
How often? You're going to give them a newsletter? You're going to spam them every day?
I do it every month.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Facebook group. You can do it every other day or a couple times a week. It's a lot easier that way.
Yeah.
But either way is good.
Yeah.
I don't
So
mind.
you have a Facebook
Just
group.
contact me.
You have a Facebook page.
I
business
do.
page,
I know.
Facebook
I have a
group.
profile, but I have the link. The group's linked to my. You can just search it, Robert O'Toole Photography Group, and you'll come up.
Okay. Okay.
Or I can give you a link.
Facebook's a little confusing for me
It
because
is.
when I first
It
started,
is.
like this is being broadcast live on my business page.
Got it.
It's facebook.com/understand photography.
Got it.
Well, I said, okay, I'm going to start this is years ago whenever I started it. And then all of a sudden, it's not interactive. So then I had to start a group.
Yeah, the group's
so
a
that
lot
it could
better.
be interactive. It's like, oh, yeah.
But the groups aren't indexed by Google.
They are not.
They're not. Yeah.
So, yeah. Are the business pages?
Yes.
Oh.
And the
see,
profiles.
I didn't know that. So you're a good SEO guy too, aren't you?
No, but
No?
I'm trying. But my new site's great. If someone go on there, if anyone wants to go on there on the Close-Up Photography, give me feedback. I just put it up. There's a lot of placeholders, but it works the way I want it. I'm going to be putting a lot of stuff up on there. A lot of
Well, I
information.
saw it today and I thought it was pretty good.
thank you. You're the first person to see it.
It's really easy to navigate, which I think on a website is so important. You know, I think mine sometimes I'm like, oh, I should maybe change this. It's a little too hard, too complicated. But yours is really simple.
I made it that way. Thank you, because that's the way I was going for. So,
So
thank you.
we're going to have that website. We're going to have all of Robert's websites, Facebook group, Facebook page. We're going to have all those links in the show notes on our website, which is understandphotography.com. And everything else we talked, not everything, but we're going to have a lot of good show notes. So,
and also, if anybody is a member of a group somewhere in Florida, anywhere, southeast, south, southwest, and they think I would be a good fit for their group, let me know the details. I can maybe go to their show or their club, or we can do a workshop, micro workshop.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Now, Robert is speaking tomorrow at the Dippy Sig Camera Club, but also he's giving 2 sold out workshops here in Naples as well. So he can do that in your area as well, as long as it, fits your schedule and all that other kind of stuff. So thank you for being a guest on our
you're
show.
welcome.
We do have, I told you, go to understandphotography.com for the show notes. We're also going to have a little special free video called How to Get a Solid Photography Education in Just 4 Weeks. It's a 45-minute video webinar that is going to basically give you a little teaser, a little taste of what our 4 weeks of proficiency in photography class is about. So if you like my teaching style, hopefully you'll want to sign up for the class that starts January 17th, same day as his Greece tour. Next week on the Understand Photography Show, my guest is going to be Jim Robillard. Now, Jim and his wife, Judith Chinsky, opened their own art gallery. So we're going to talk about owning an art gallery, opening an art gallery, you know, how do you sell work, how do you advertise, all that kind of stuff. A lot of our viewers and listeners want to learn more about how to sell their artwork. So we're going to talk about that next week. Also, again, check understandphotography.com for our show notes and what we've got coming up. If you're in Florida, we have a workshop called How to Sell Your Photography as Art, featuring Carolyn Edlin with Artsy Shark coming up on February 25th. So that's we have, I think, 7 openings left, or maybe less. I don't know. It's selling pretty quickly. So check that out when you're on the understandphotography.com website. And again, we are now on iTunes. It would be so helpful to us. I'm like begging and pleading. Go on iTunes, subscribe to the Understand Photography Show, listen, review, rate 5 stars, please. It will really help us if we can get enough reviews, good reviews and ratings in the first, I think we've got about 6 weeks left. We can get on their new and notable page, which of course is going to help us. So we appreciate it so much. So thank you so much. I'm Peggy Farren. This is episode 18. So when you go on understandphotography.com, you can check out episode 18. We should have the video online by tomorrow and the show notes as well. So we'll see you next Friday at 4 p.m. for the Understand Photography Show.